Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel the Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaDungeon.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Our first question comes from Axel is quite a beast. No, you can't put that in the name field. Scratch that out. Darkfire16. If you could have either Nayru's love, Farore's wind, or Din's fire in real life, which would you prefer? Does Nayru's love come with the goddess and or the... I'm kidding. I'd probably pick... Like, if that was a real thing, I'd probably pick Farore's wind just because it would be the most convenient in real life to just be able to teleport, and I can't imagine myself needing a protective shield or fire sphere in real life. Well, that would be a pretty interesting scenario. What about you guys? Tell me in the comments. Hunter927 asks, who would win in a fight between Ganon, Demise, and Majora? Well, I think you'd have to count Ganon out. I mean, yeah, he's the main villain of the series, but for me, he is supposed to be like a mostly mortal character, except I guess when he got the Triforce of Power and was depicted with that in Twilight Princess. Meanwhile, Demise is like a demon godlike entity who basically created all the monsters in the series, and up until that point, he's kind of like basically... He created a bunch of monsters, and he's sort of the source behind all evil in the series, so really I think he would beat him there. The tricky competition is Majora, because Majora almost destroyed an entire world, kind of single-handedly, but otherwise I kind of equate Majora to being very similar to Demise in that way. They're like the prime evil of their respective dimensions, but it's very hard to compare them because they come from different dimensions. There's no like point of comparison, really. So, I don't know, it's kind of tricky. Tell me your guys' assessment, though. Nathan asks, which Zelda game has the best graphics in your opinion? Well, it's sort of almost objective at this point. The most technically advanced game is Skyward Sword, in that it is about the best-looking game on its respective system, which is the Wii. It took the most advantage of the hardware. It's the most technically advanced, graphically, Zelda game. And as soon as the Wind Waker HD comes out, it will replace it. However, in terms of art design, the best look, I actually think, is the Wind Waker. Not because it's my favorite art style. Favorite art style is a different question to me, but because it has the best visual design and it brings its style together in a way that has the most flair and uniqueness of any Zelda game. It's not my favorite art style at all. It's one of my least favorites, actually. But it does bring itself together. The game brings it all together in a way that's better than most Zelda games. So most technically advanced is, for now, Skyward Sword, but the best art design is the Wind Waker. Zelda Fanatic asks, there are Whovians, Potterheads, and Sherlockians. What's a Zelda fan called? I don't know, Lynx? RetroGamer702 asks, do you think that Zelda Wii U will have the Wind Waker art style? I thought that they were going to retire it for a while, but they were so taken with the way that the Wind Waker looks on the Wii U that they had to remake it. Does this mean that they might make the next game in that style? I think that the fact that they did decide to make another game in that style is kind of and it's just a remake too, is sort of like direct evidence that they won't be doing it for the next game. I don't think they're going to do it twice in a row with a major game and like a remake of an old game that was in that style. That's just my input, but I really don't think they're going to do that. I think that the fact that they made the Wind Waker HD is them getting their love for how it looked on the Wii U out of their system. They're not going to do it again with the new game. That's why they made the Wind Waker HD, in my opinion. Hylian Link asks, Nintendo stated that they were going to rethink conventions of Zelda, but when they said this, they only talked about changing the game's interior design, dungeon order, etc. Would you like to see Nintendo reimagine Zelda's storyline and characters, or would you like Zelda to stick to its roots? I don't think it really needs to expand past that much, no. I think that the gameplay area is mainly where it suffers. One thing that'd be cool to see them expand on and rethink is world building. They could tell a much more detailed story without betraying Zelda tradition, you know? And I do want them to keep up Zelda tradition, but some more details and some more elaboration and just making things more elaborate in general would actually be very welcome, in my opinion. That's something I'd like to see. Other than that, no. I think that their general idea, the whimsical fantasy thing, how they do things, how they do the fairy tale storytelling kind of thing, is actually pretty good. And keeping things simple is good. But just adding more details that don't disrupt the simple premise, but expand on the, like the individual aspects of that premise, that's pretty good, I think. Good Guy Ganondorf, he's not a good guy, asks, the difference between the Hylians and the humans are their ears. If the humans are in Skyward Sword, then why do they have pointy ears? Well, the characters in Skyward Sword are pretty much supposed to be Hylians, but just before they went by that name. I mean, that's like, they formed Hyrule Kingdom, so they're the Hylians, but They have the sacred blood and whatever. But, you know, honestly, Hylians are pretty much supposed to be humans, just a specific race of humans with the pointy ears. As far as I can tell, they're really all supposed to be Hylians. Link's called a human in Twilight Princess by a Goron, so... Link's Fangirl 231 asks, since Zelda and Link from Skyward Sword were the people who started human life on the surface, and they're both Hylian, how are there other races who aren't Hylian, like they have round ears and not pointed ones? Later on, like the Gerudos and the Ordonians. Well, honestly, they're probably just other races that cropped up either through evolution, magical, whatever, or divine intervention, whatever. Just at some point, the human race diverted into a bunch of other races, I guess, that are... This sounds racist to say, less sacred and holy than the Hylians are supposed to be. God, that sounds really bad when you put it that way. Rambler77 asks, now that Zelda has a timeline, will the new Zelda games try to fit in with the timeline, or will they be their own games? I think that, you know, like, some people think that they're gonna, like, do a reboot now that they've assigned every game on the timeline. They're gonna, like, okay, you know what? I'm done with this. Let's go over here. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think, honestly, the fact that they've assigned the timeline order and whatever means that they're going to try to link things up more. Like, that's probably not going to last forever. They're probably going to start contradicting themselves, and then we'll have to do this whole dance all over again. But I do think that for a while they're going to follow the timeline, and as I've said before, I think they're going to stick the next couple of games at the end of the timelines and just kind of expand out from where they have their whole base set up now. Zelda in the future asks, what's better, Zelda or Call of Duty? Definitely Call of Duty. I'm just kidding. Well, that was a trap. But my real question was, what do you think about there being a Zelda game to take place far more in the future than it normally takes place in Zelda with its medieval setting? Like, what if it happened in, like, if what happened in Ocarina of Time was in history books for school, and Hyrule was more like a city, and everything was very advanced technology-wise? Even more advanced than today's technology. Could it work, or totally be a flop? Well, I think that it could work. It's very unorthodox, and I wouldn't necessarily want to see very much of it, and certainly I wouldn't want it to be like a big standard for the series. But I actually don't think that high technology like that would necessarily be bad for the series. The key thing you gotta keep in mind is Zelda is a fantasy series, and it should be fantasy. It can be technology. That doesn't make it science fiction automatically. It can still be fantastic and relatively unexplained and just a magical, interesting setting. And that can work. I think it could. You just have to be very creative with it and artistic with it. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is the whimsy. Sometimes you do technology and it gets all gritty and whatever. I don't think that works for the Zelda series, and I would like to see them maintain their whimsy fairy tale approach. They can still do very interesting, more advanced settings with that. At the very least in a primitive-looking way, like with steampunk or whatever, but they could do it more advanced too. As long as they keep in those core elements of the series, I wouldn't mind that, but I just wouldn't want to see a ton of it. Amon Weimer asks, what aspects of the original Zelda for the NES did you like or dislike? There's two main things for me, I think. What I dislike is that, honestly, things are a little cryptic. It's really, like, a lot of the dungeon entrances are hidden in a place where you literally can't see that they're there at all, and you have no real hint at where they are. Some are hinted, but, like, some aren't, and you really have to just bomb everywhere. And the same goes for several of the optional secrets. I just don't think it's a good idea. I think having some sort of breadcrumb trail for the player to follow, even if it's extremely vague, is an important thing. Definitely make it so they have to find it, but give them a reason to look there, you know? What I did like about the original Legend of Zelda is frankly just how open it is. You can just do a lot of different stuff in a lot of different orders. It doesn't really matter. The only thing you have to do last is the final dungeon, really. And it's just so open in what you can do. It is the only Zelda game I can think of, maybe Zelda 2, I haven't played enough of that, or played it at all, to say. But it's the only Zelda game that's, like, truly, fully open world. I mean, other Zelda games do it in some aspects, but original Legend of Zelda does it most, and that's awesome. Makar for Prez asks, is Dragon Roost Island from the Wind Waker Death Mountain from Ocarina of Time? Yeah, pretty much it probably is. The Fierce Deity asks, there were tons of key things in Twilight Princess that I liked a lot, such as the wolf form, the 7 hidden skills, and the use of the eagle. Do you think that the wolf form, the 7 hidden skills, or the eagle should be in future Zelda games? If so, should it be the same, or will there be more added onto them? I think that all these systems were kind of needed to expand, except the hidden skills. I think that's basically perfect, except maybe add a little more tactical use for them, maybe. But I love those, and I'd love to see them again. The other two, I think, could use expansion. The eagle thing kind of was expanded in Skyward Sword in a very different way with the beetle item. It kind of does the same thing. You hold it on your wrist, you shoot it out, and it grabs stuff or does stuff for you or bumps into things, whatever. It's basically the same mechanic. It's just, you know, a mechanical beetle instead of a bird. But, so it's basically the same thing. And I wouldn't mind seeing something like that again as the beetle or as a bird or whatever. I don't mind. And I think that as for the wolf link, I wouldn't mind seeing like a wolf form or another alternate form like that again. I mean, you kind of saw that in Majora's Mask a little bit, but I would like them to do more with it. Like, you could really explore as the wolf and really experience Hyrule or whatever location in a very different way, and like, you just interact with things very differently, really flesh it out and make it its own half of the game almost. That would be really cool. So I wouldn't mind seeing it again as long as they do it well. Alright, last question. Drawsid asks, what would you think if you were in a future Zelda game, or there was a reference to Zelda Dungeon? Do you want another Tingle in the Zelda series? And there actually already is a reference to ZD in the Zelda series. The reference is that you can beat games in the Zelda series. Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact information in the description, and I'll see you guys later. I thought that they were going to retire it for a while, but they were so taken with it that the Wind Waker looks on the Wii. That's kind of far more in the future than it normally takes place in oh my god, where it wasn't.